Okay, here we've got a few things that I've just sanded up. I'll put a little bit in the video of that later, but this is just to show you what's been done to get these prepared to do edge painting. We've been edge painting for many years, and I do notice that a lot of people don't seem to have a good technique for doing it, so this is why I'm making this up at the moment. It's partly about doing some of these bangles here, but that'll be for a following video a bit later. Some new tools I've got for making them easily. Now, I have seen it often mentioned that when people are getting things prepared for edging, that they burnish it and do all sorts of things. Now, I won't go into the type of edge paint at the moment because that's another thing that I'm working at. We've been mixing our own for years, and we're doing another new mix at the moment. So that's not so relevant. Most edge paints, one way or the other, can work. I prefer edge paints that are thermomoldable, which I'll touch on a little bit later. The biggest thing is just a very fine amount of sanding, as you'll hopefully see on these. And one of the things that I do after I've done the sanding is to go around with a cigarette lighter or some form of flamethrower and go around and get rid of any fuzzy edging. So just to show you a little bit more of that on these wallets that I've been working on. These ones here, they've at the moment been sanded by the video you'll see shortly, but they're still a little bit fuzzy. There's one in particular, see the little fuzzy bit sitting on top, and these ones here show ones that I figure are ready to have the edge coat put on. As you see, it's not all shiny or anything like that. Problem is that if it's shiny or in some leathers oily, the edge paint can peel off. So I learned a long time ago the best thing is to just have a fine sanding, put on a coat or two coats, and various techniques. You can sand it back or you can iron it in. One of the tools that I use a lot, I'll probably touch on a bit later, is a soldering iron with a thermostat which I can turn down to get the temperature I want, and that gives me, here's a finished off one that I just trialed up to get ready for this video, and that shows the type of edging that we're doing in this case over here in a moment. There is different tools and machines. Very often I'll use a machine like this one over here, which has a bucket in it, takes the edging up, puts it out onto here, and then you roll the thing on that. That's good for when you're doing bulk stuff. I'll probably do that on the wallets. But in this case here, there's a relatively small amount. When you're doing machine edging, it takes a quarter of an hour or more to clean it up each time. For this amount here, it's not worth the time to put in the machine, so I'll just show you how we do a lot by hand. One of the first things is, once we get egg cups, one of the most handy things, and I like to use a foam with a bit of a V shape on it like that. You want it broad enough that it covers a fair bit of the side of the thing as you're going, but also the little points on the end help to get into little bits that which you can't do with the bigger part. So we'll just go ahead. I'll get this set up in this camera stand. Okay, preparation's one of the important things when you're doing edging. The better you do your preparation, the quicker and easier the rest of the job will go. If you notice here as you see me sanding, I'm holding the article on about a 45-degree angle to the sandpaper. That drags it in from the edge in towards the middle. After I've done both edges, then as you see, I'm coming up doing the middle of it there now. That generally gives me a pretty good edge to work with. As you see, a little bit of touching up. Here you see me following on with the cigarette lighter. Sometimes I use a different form of flamethrower, but in this case here, just showing you a quick run around with the cigarette lighter gets rid of any little fuzzy edges and makes it now ready to start applying the edging. Alright, hopefully we're back again. Right, now having good lighting when you're edging is important. Also, I quite often use a set of magnifiers or something so that I can, with 66-year-old eyes, they don't see as good as they used to when I was younger. So I prefer to be able to see it. Now hopefully I can do this so you can see what I'm doing. Right, first coat going on. Generally I don't worry about getting any bulk amount on. It's better to get any little fuzzy stuff coated over. Come back, just check, see if there's any misses. Right. That's sort of first coat. Handy if you've got something to be able to keep it off the table as you go. In this case I've just got a heap of polish containers. Right, hopefully I'm doing that so you can see it. Right. I'll have a look at this a little bit closer in a moment as soon as I get on the coat. As you see there'll be some little bit still missing, which I'll get in this second coat. Okay, now as long as I'm not being too rough, I shouldn't have hardly anything over the edge. As I said in the first coat, it's not terribly important because your second coat you'll normally come back and catch any little misses. Right, hopefully that shows up alright, what I've done there. Okay. Right. And I'll do one more now just for the video and then we'll come back and do some more later. Generally it takes, depending on the edging you're using, could be 10 minutes, could be half an hour, depends on the thickness you're putting it on, before you follow on. Now normally, in most cases, I'll be giving it at least a second coat in the first stages before I do any either sanding or ironing, whichever method I decide to pick at the time. Sometimes like these things, ironing is quite quick, but sanding can be pretty quick too with a good edging coat. Right, here's a nice imitation snakeskin one. There you see. Once you get the hang of it, it can be pretty quick. See, because it's fairly broad, I'm not worried about coming down over the edges by far. And the shape that I've got sanded onto it is rounded, so that makes it easier not to go over the edge by far as well, which I did in that case. It's sloppy. You know how I get things all sloppy? Try and film it. Okay. Rightio. So we'll come back once that's dry and carry on for a while. Okay, we're back again. The first coat's dry enough to put a second coat on now. Now I like to get, before I do any sanding, it's common at this stage that it'll be quite rough, and when you do the first coat, because it is all rough, it's slow and catchy to get around a little bit. Second coat will generally glide around a lot better, and that's where I try to get a little bit of a bead happening so that it gives me a bit of bulk to sand away. So I'll just go around there fairly quickly now, and if I do it right I don't have to turn it around and do it from either direction, and it's not too bad. Okay, you see that? Yeah. Okay. Okay, now putting a bead, what I mean is that I'm trying to get it thick in the middle, not so much towards the edges. You'll find with a lot of edging paint, it'll want to separate in the middle. You'll think that you haven't put your product together well. Quite often you have. It's just that the paint tends to run away towards the outer edges, so if you keep your beading into the middle only, it doesn't tend to do that problem as much. Little tip, if you try doing it too deep at the moment, you'll find that that's what will happen. Okay, just ripping through these. Now, I'll have to give these probably a good half hour to dry, enough for me to be able to sand them. Different edging's different, sometimes you've got to leave it longer. Mostly you'll never get away with doing it in less than half an hour. It's not going well there, that one. Okay. Right. And depending on the edging, if it's fairly thin, you may need to give it a third coat before you sand, if it looks like you're not getting enough build up. If you sand too early, your leather will get exposed more easily, and generally what happens then is that it's going to end up needing more coats all over again. So you're better off in a bit of bulk there just to be able to sand in the first one. Okay, I haven't done the red and pink one yet because I'm doing them to match colours. So we'll have a look at that later. I might clean this up, do that while I'm waiting for these to dry. So back again shortly. Now turn that off. Okay, we'll try that again. We finished the red and the pink this morning, and I'm getting back to showing you how to finish these ones off now. I did have a couple more there before, but they sold this morning unfortunately. So what I wanted to show you is that after I've got on a couple of coats, you have a fairly rough, I'll see if I can, while I'm holding the camera by hand, I just wanted to see if I could get a better view of how rough the finish is. Up close you'll see it's quite bumpy. Right, now what I generally do with the bumps is I like to give them a little light sand, and then quite often I'll go and use the iron to smooth it out. So we'll go over and have a look at that part in action after I've showed you a little bit about the sanding. So to do that, I'll set this up into the stand, and hopefully that'll work out right. Put the viewer up so I can see what I'm doing. Right, now this sanding block's a 3M sanding block. You get them in different grits. This is a fine one. That's one of the common tools that I use for sanding. You can use just the sandpapers and things like that. It'll do it okay, but I like using these ones. They seem to do the job fairly quick and easily. And the other thing that I use quite commonly is grey Scotch-Brite. You can buy it from the paint shops generally, particularly ones that supply panel beaters and that type of thing. It is very good for being able to get into all the little tight nooks and crannies and stuff like that that you get at times. So for now, just get my visor on so I can see, and hopefully you guys can see what I do. Not a lot to it at the sanding stage, especially if I'm doing a bit of ironing. It's just pretty quick over it like that. All I'm doing is just knocking down any little high bumps that are lumpy bits in the paint. So normally that's enough there what you're seeing. We'll have a look at that. As you'll see, that'll be, well, hopefully can see that is now a fair bit smoother without all the lumps and bumps. I'll just do these ones as well, and we'll skip over to the ironing. Now I'm concentrating on this. Hopefully we can still see alright. Right, yep. Okay. Normally that's all you'd have to do a bit of edging. Sometimes, mostly with rougher than this stuff, I'll go around with the iron and do it. So I should have turned the iron on already and I didn't. Right. So we'll come back in a minute once the iron's warmed up. Okay, I forgot to show you the Scotch-Brite part, and that's an even almost quicker part of the process. You said that gets in, and any little parts that you might miss with the sandpaper block, that'll, with a bit of luck, you should be able to see that that's now quite smooth. At that stage you can pretty much just go and do, all going well, it'll be just one layer of finish edge and that'll be it. Okay, oh yeah, that's right, yep. Okay, here we go. So, over to the iron. Right, Now, with the iron, I do have a B section I've ground out in the front. You can do that with a chainsaw file a little bit and get that sort of a shape. It does come in handy if you want to be able to just run around like that. Right. But also, quite often, when you're doing it that way, you do have to sort of do it from both edges still. It's not just wipe down the middle. I tend to finish one down the middle a bit. But another thing that you quite often need to do is on the edge here you might end up with little sharp bits if you're not careful, and just using the side of the iron like that and pull it towards the inside. If you let it go that way you'll end up with the paint forming a sharp ridge along the edge. So part of the reason for using it this way is to make sure that you don't have any sharp, that everything's going in towards the middle, and then just run around a bit like that. Now hopefully the camera can pick up that the edging is now ready to get the last layer of paint put on it. You can just do wax and polish on top of that if you want to have more of a matte look about it. It will polish up fairly well, but most of the time for me it's just quicker and easier to stick another layer of paint on, and that means there's less likely to be any stickiness. Alright, so a quick one like that, as I said, boom, 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 boom. The good thing when you're using iron is that if there's any holes or divots and stuff in there, you can slide the edging over. I'll just look through my visor here to see if I can see any. No, I've done too good a job. Okay. If there's any little holes, you can slip it sideways across and fill the hole. It's a bit like a putty process, if you like. And right, as I'll say later on there, I do this for making a bit of money. That's my living. It's not just a craft as it is for some people, so I don't like to spend hours getting every edge super perfect. Most people's won't come up as well as what I do anyway. So what I'm showing you is more of a profitable way than what a lot of other people show. Okay, that's it. From there, all I do now is come back and give it another coat. So turn the iron off, and we'll go back to the edging. Hopefully I don't make you drunk moving you around like that. Okay. Right, back to the egg cup. Sometimes you may want to put a little drop of water in. I like to keep one of these sauce bottles where it's easy to just put out a drop or two if you need to. I think this will be alright as it is. So let's grab the purses. Now, dunk it in, make sure it's not too thick or anything, and here we go. Right. Check I haven't done any, missed anything? No, that's good. Okay, one. because it's nice and smooth now, the edging just glides along, puts a nice bead, and pretty much because it's rounded, as you know, you generally won't show any separation lines or anything at all like that. Right. Okay. Last one. This one's a little bit thicker, so just a couple of small spots there. Okay. That's it. Past this point now, it's just detail the product and polish it and should be ready to go. We'll go through one last thing, and that's the cleanup. Rightio. Alright, you'll see it in a moment, this sink, which has had 1,000 million cleanups in it. Being a water-based paint, you can clear most of it up, but you'll see just a little bit of dry stuff around. It's a good idea to keep a cake of soap handy, rub it in, squish it around. Alright. Also, a little tip is when you go to do some edging, it's worth dampening the sponge down slightly and wring it right out. Right, pretty much like that, and it does help the flow of the edging that much. So that sponge is now ready to be used again, probably another 100 times or so. Got to replace them every now and again. And I think that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. If any of you are interested in any of these sort of products and that, check out our Wild Harry site, where you can see a lot of the products that we make, including some of these wallets and things like that.